All right, the Reds. Just got the thumbs up that we were starting, didn't know we were starting. It's talking Reds, Gareth Roberts Lizzi Doyle, talking about the match, Sheffield United at home. Say at home, just like in a ground with no fans and that again.
For $14.95.
$14.95. You can shove that up your arse. Will we start with that? It's too much, we're not paying it. There's loads of campaigns out there, there's loads of ideas around donating the $14.95 to food banks and things like that. Great idea. That's happened all around the country already. Newcastle fans did it. Be good if Liverpool fans did it as well. And obviously there are lots of ways to watch the football without paying $14.95 to them, isn't there? You know, you could go to the pub with your household and eat a substantial meal, or other ways.
Yeah, you can eat a substantial meal with your household and, you know, have a little, I don't know, like a sausage and mash and watch the match.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, is there?
Nothing wrong with that at all. So yeah, $14.95 is too much, feels like too much. I just can't get behind the idea. I think they've completely misread the situation. And if you look around at other sports, I've seen people saying, for instance, oh, well, it's like the boxing. But it's not like the boxing, because on the boxing you have a full night of entertainment leading up to the big one. You can, normally as well in that circumstance, you're getting your mates round, you might get a pizza, you make a big night of it. This is like potentially on your own, watching one football match with no fans and paying $14.95.
It's sheer exploitation is what it is. It's exploitation of fans, and it's like you're being punished. It's how far can we drive them? Do you know what I mean? It's like, obviously you can't go in the ground. We understand that for health reasons. You know, we're not soft. That like what's happening in the world at the moment. So it's like, okay, so people are trying to go to the pub to watch it. Then we're in a place where we're not able to do that. That in tier 3 restrictions, we're not able to go to the pub with our friends and family. So then it's like, okay, so you're now restricted to your house, and basically, if you're paying subscriptions worth like £100 or whatever, you've then got to go and pay another 15 quid on top of it. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it doesn't surprise me. And if you get a chance to listen to it, go listen to our Weekender show. I spoke to Joe Blott from the Spirit of Shankly about it yesterday, and obviously you'll know that the Spirit of Shankly are leading the boycott for it, but he surprised me really in the sense that he said that he'd been in talks with a couple of people and said, like, it's not that we won't pay or contribute, you're just asking too much. Yeah. Like, £15 for a one-off game. Like, and how many of those games are going to happen over the course of the season? They were looking at, like, a day pass or whatever. I mean, I know that I've got something where you can pay £10 and it gives you a day pass for basically Sky. And you can watch whatever's on Now TV, yeah. And it's like he's saying, you know, when we understand football's in a tricky situation, we will help if we can, but it has to be reasonable. And they've just completely ignored the reasonable aspect of it. Yeah,
it doesn't sort of add up, I don't think, with sort of everything else that's going on as well. I mean, you know, there's some arseholes on Twitter saying, oh, well, the Anfield app charges. Yeah, because we're just like the Premier League, aren't we? But you know what I mean? Like you compare it to other sorts of subscription things, like, you know, what you pay for Netflix or what you pay for Spotify Premium or whatever, and it just doesn't add up for me. I think it's far too much. No one's saying, as you say, we don't want to pay and we want it for free and all on a plate, but 15 quid. When
you put on West Brom Fulham on as well, like, no offence, but... And it's funny actually, because it is a big wider conversation of like the gap between the big six and the rest of the Premier League with all this project, big picture, European Super Leagues. But let's be honest, like, I don't understand who's going to be paying for those sorts of games, and it wouldn't surprise me if it comes like the second half of the season and your big games, your absolute showstoppers like your Liverpool United, your Merseyside derby, I don't know, like Chelsea, Arsenal, all those will be put on pay-per-view. But the thing is, the experience you get, and I've seen a couple of arguments, which is, okay, you're paying $14.95, that's half of a match ticket. First and foremost, in Liverpool, it's not half a match ticket. I wish our tickets were 30 quid. But also, like, there's a difference. The reason you pay the money to go to the match, if you're lucky enough, obviously, is for the experience. You go for the meeting your mates, having a drink, the atmosphere, the being around people. That's what you're paying for. It's not, you're not just paying to watch 11 people play footy. Like, there's a reason why Sky and all that will be struggling and be panicking about fans not being in ground, because it doesn't come with the package that they want to sell. So to try and ask us to pay $14.95 for something that's not even nowhere near half of what we'd usually get, it's just a disgrace.
Yeah, and it's funny as well that you know, the figures so far for these 1495 games, they're keeping very much close to the chest and not putting them out there, which suggests to me that I think the idea of boycotting it does look like it's working, and hopefully they see sense and lower that price. Anyway, Jurgen Klopp has just done his press conference ahead of the Sheffield United game, which is 8 p.m. on Saturday, and he's talked about various things. He says on Thiago and Matip being fit, he says, I don't know. We've got training after this press conference, and we'll see who is out then. I don't want to rule anyone out until someone tells me different. It is expected though that Matip and Thiago will both be available. I'd be sticking with Fabinho anyway. Now I think, you know, like I get the argument about you missing from midfield and stuff like that, but I just think he's been so good at centre half, and apparently is enjoying playing centre half. Literally has said to Klopp, I like it. Leave him there. Like
I didn't know he said that, did he?
Yeah. So just leave him there. That's your position, lad. You're absolutely smashing it. And, you know, in any other team in the league, he'd be one of the top centre-halves there. So let him be that at Liverpool.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think Klopp come out and said, didn't he? I can't remember whether it was like post-match or pre-match. He said about Matip only being able to play one game a week. Well, you look at our schedule, we're 2 games a week at the minute. So I think to try and say to like Matip, who is our natural centre half, who is great when he plays, but if you know we can only physically play 1 game a week, I think it's better to have a consistency first and then have Matip as your bonus if that's the case, and keep it as Gomez and Fabinho. Let them get rhythm, let them get confidence. They've got a clean sheet after all the stuff that's been said about the defence and missing Van Dijk and missing Alisson, the 7-2, all of that. Like, they kept a clean sheet against a really good side. I'm not being funny, Ajax are better than Aston Villa. Do you know what I mean? They are the better than Aston Villa, the better than Everton as well. The better than a lot of the teams in this league, and they kept a clean sheet against them. And I think they need to use that and go forward and get a bit of rhythm, because I think the last thing we need is to be chopping and changing our defence. I think we've saw that in the past where it's really hindered us, and it was a big deal getting Van Dijk in, and it was a big deal getting Alisson in. Van Dijk literally hasn't missed a game in the Premier League. I don't even think he's been subbed. I think he's been subbed once. Bar the Everton game where he goes off injured. I think that's it, and the whole time he's come in. So it shows you that consistency is key. So I would have no arguments whatsoever for Fabinho staying there if Matip can only play once a week. Yeah,
Robertson as well. He's talked about Robertson. It will be his 100th appearance in the Premier League for Liverpool if he plays, which I suspect he will do. Apparently Tsimikas is close to fitness, but you know, Robertson's been one of the best players this season so far. He's on form. He was great again the other night. Kept on going like the Jota bunny until the very final whistle. And yeah, I mean, Klopp says again, finally something nice to talk about. I think he's getting fed up of talking about Van Dijk and everything.
And all that, yeah.
He says it's a wonderful story from the moment he arrived here. He's established himself on a really high level. So far, absolutely good, or even better. I like him as a person, pretty chatty.
He's Scottish, what do you think? Of course he is.
Pretty chatty.
Pretty
I like
chatty. I love the way he's like gone, yes, I like him as a person. I should think so. He's pretty good part of your team, isn't he? He's Boss Robertson. I think he was like, watching him the other night, I think he looks so sharp. Like, he looks really sharp. He was great against Everton as well. And I think he's almost stepped up a little bit even when Henderson's not played and stuff. I think even when Henderson would come on at half time, but I think what Andy Robertson does is lead by example and sort of takes on a little bit of a captaincy role, which is if he sets the pace. And I think him and Mane do that very, very well, by the way. And I think he's played fantastic. He's been one of our best players so far, and it'll be obviously playing Sheffield. You'd expect Liverpool to go and win this game at home, and it could be a really good night for Robertson. He looks like he's bang up for it, doesn't he? And if the front three are firing on all cylinders, then we'll have nothing to worry about at all. Yeah,
it's three games at Anfield in a row. And Klopp's again being asked about the unbeaten run. He said, I wish we could get through something without mentioning this, but it's got to be mentioned. It's brilliant. 61 games unbeaten at home in the league is unbelievable. And you know, I think one of the things I always sort of moaned about, or always wanted, if you like, when he arrived, I was like, you know, let's get the idea of this place being a fortress back. let's make it hard for teams to come here and get anything. And that's obviously where we are now. I always say that's the basis for anything. You look at any good team through history, they've always got a really good home record. And Liverpool, even in the bad times, even the soonest and things like that, the home record was still pretty decent. So, I sort of judge managers on that, and Klopp's been absolutely brilliant.
It's a foundation to build off, isn't it? And I think it does no harm to give the players a tiny little bit of pressure and something to be proud of, because every single one of them will know that is the record. And I think it's like, is it Salah or Mane? Literally, I don't know how many players in our team, bar Henderson, have not lost at home, or have not been beaten at home in the league. They will not want to give that up, and I think they're really proud of that record in terms of that's their achievement. They've worked really hard for that, to the point where you can say it gets into our heads, but think about Sheffield United coming. They could say, oh yeah, Liverpool, they shipped 7 goals to Villa, they looked, they conceded 2 to Everton. They're both away. The second they walk into Anfield, it's those conversations of, that these haven't lost here in like 60 odd games, and it gets into the opposition's heads, and obviously we aren't there, the fans aren't there, but the ground and that record stays there, and it's a good little thing to get into the heads of the opposition, and it's an amazing record that they should be so proud of, and like I say, I think they'll fight to the death to keep that record going.
Yeah, I think the performance the other night was really key to what we're going to see the next few games. So I feel like, even though we drew against Everton in many ways because of what went on and everything around it, it sort of felt like a defeat. Do you know what I mean? Almost, because we had the goal taken away from us, then obviously the Van Dijk situation, and I think it was a bit of a mental test in the week to go to Ajax. So to go to Ajax, win, be gritty, dig in, do what they did, and come away with a clean sheet and 3 points was absolutely brilliant. And of course, all these things can always bite you on the arse, but I just cannot see a way that we lose to Sheffield United, because you look at their record, they're yet to win a game. They've only scored 2 goals in 5 matches, and I think one of them was a penalty as well.
Yeah, it was.
So they're really struggling up front. Obviously they've got Brewster, but he's still finding his way there. And Klopp was complimentary about him, said we still see him as one of our boys. But yeah, I just can't. What you were just saying there as well. We played so well against them last season. You had Chris Wilder, at the final whistle saying, hands up. Liverpool are brilliant there. Yeah. So, that's surely in their heads when they go on the pitch tomorrow night.
Sheffield are different this year, aren't they? Yeah. Like you said, the form. It's a shame, really. I really like Chris Wilder, his sound, and loved it when he was training in Stanley Park, and dogs are walking past and all stuff like that. I think he's great, and I think what he's achieved with Sheffield is great, and I actually do wish them well for the season. I really hope that they stay up, but they're a different side this season, and I think you cannot see this being anything other than a win. And if anything, they should be taking this as an opportunity to get a good few goals under the belt and keep the clean sheet. Actually, I think they would probably be more bothered about keeping the clean sheet for that defensive confidence. But I think Klopp set his intentions with that Ajax game. I think by taking the front 3 off at 60 minutes, is a ballsy move for a Champions League game. Your first Champions League game, which everyone says that's the most important one, to go out and win for the 3 points. They're the second seed in the group, aren't they? Is that right, Ajax? I think they were. It was an away game. Technically should be the hardest game in that group for Liverpool, even though I think it'll be Atalanta because of the form they're in. But that was so important to go out and get your 3 points and get you going, because the quicker you get the points, then you can play, a bit of a weaker team later on in the groups. And he set his intentions. Taking them off at 60 was huge, and I was gobsmacked. I called it to be 2 of them plus Milner, but no, that says to me they're all starting. They're all starting tomorrow. You would not take them off with 30 minutes to go if they weren't starting. So, and like I said, I think Mo Salah with the 100 goals, he'll be desperate to improve on his record for the last couple of years, and I don't think he'll have a 40-goal season, but listen, if he can have a 30-odd goal season or whatever, or Mane got the 2 of them tied for Golden Boot, didn't they? Not last season but the season before. So if I was Sheffield, I'd be terrified. I
think the thing about that substitution as well is that it was ballsy and bold, and it was a bit like, what are you doing here, lad? But he does it, and then you're like, oh, Minamino's playing really well.
Yeah.
Jota's playing really well. They both look on form. They both look fresh. You know, if he won't, as you say, I agree with you. But if for some reason he started them tomorrow, you'd be all right with it, wouldn't you? Cause
yeah, I would be.
I think there's a big difference now and I think Klopp might have mentioned this as well. You know, I always feel harsh hammering him because of what he's done for the club, but there was a big drop-off going to Origi, wasn't there, from the front three. Now, when you're like Jota and you see that goal he scored for Portugal the other day, you're like, I want to see more of this lad, he's brilliant.
Says a lot about Origi, doesn't it? Like, you know, he's brought on Shaqiri there ahead of Origi, and I think we were all made up. I don't think it's any secret that Liverpool fans think he's a great footballer. We just don't see enough of him because of his injuries, and Origi's fell down the pecking order there because he used to get on ahead of Shaqiri. There was a time when Shaqiri was sat on the bench and he wouldn't use him, and I think we've evolved now. Like I said, when he took the front three off, I was like, what is he doing? But then, God, the way Jota, just like his energy and everything that he had, and Minamino just looked really like, sort of like he could play in really tight spaces and just really clever on the ball. And it wouldn't surprise me if they start against
Midgetland.
Midtjylland, is that right?
I don't know. I did look it up at one point, but I forgot.
Midtjylland on Tuesday.
The Danish fellas.
I think they deserve it though. Like I think one or two of them deserve it. Like it feels quite harsh that they put in such a good performance for 30 minutes and it's like, we're not going to see you. Now, I think, like I say, if Liverpool can get to a 3-0 up against Sheffield and we're on 60, he'll probably hook one or two of the front three off to keep them fit, because as much as they're competitive, as much as they love scoring goals and stuff like that, the important thing about this season with the amount of games is to keep people fit. We've seen people drop like flies for other teams, never mind our own. And the 3 points are the most important, the clean sheets the second, and for me, just keeping everyone not injured would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. We've got a few comments here, so I'll have a quick run through, see what people are saying. Ray Hefferman says, up the fucking Reds. He's right, lad. Unknown Entity says, absolute belter start this. Don't know what happened at the start. Paranoid now. What bit was at the start?
I hope you didn't hear our conversation.
We were having some beauty conversations before this started. I hope you didn't hear that. What else have we got? People talking about various ways that you may be able to watch the match. I'll leave that with you, but you can look in the comments. Conrad there says, on hold with Sky right now, waiting to cancel my subscription. Greedy pricks. I mean, this is what I'm talking about sort of, misjudging the room, if you like. I think they've just gone too high, and certainly at the times that we're in, it just doesn't sort of feel right. Someone says, Unknown Entity again says, listen, had I paid £15 for West Brom v Burnley, I would still be crying. Someone else says, I'd struggle to watch Villa Leeds if it was paid to. Unless I had a bet on it. This is the thing as well. Loads of the games, for the bet with the best will in the world, are grim.
Yeah,
and footy's always been that way. You'll get some moments in games and things like that. And I enjoy watching other clubs play, but the idea that I'm dishing out 15 nicker to watch, a team I don't even support. Nah. Scott McCauley says, how are the Anfield Rock getting around the tier 3 restrictions by meeting up? It doesn't count for workplaces, right? Yeah, exactly that, mate. This is us working, this is us in the office. We're allowed to do this. Obviously, we're keeping our distance and all that kind of stuff. We're washing our hands, we're cleaning everything down, we're taking all the precautions. But yeah, we're allowed to come into workplaces. What else have we got here? Good word. I love this word. GLFC says, should be a flim. That's reasonable.
A flim? A flim is very reasonable, by the way. Oh,
it's right, lad. I'd pay a flim.
Yeah.
Because a flim's we did.
What else do people use for a fiver? Is it a bluey?
Yeah.
I don't like that though. I prefer flim.
It sounds like Frankie Vaughan, that, doesn't it?
What?
Bluey.
Bluey?
Anyway.
Try over my head.
Someone's called it gay per view. That's something else, that mean. What else have we got? Why are Everton not on pay-per-view? Lad. Who's out for them? Henderson is an underrated player and an inspiring captain, and I'm not a Liverpool fan. Well, that's nice here, mate. Thanks for tuning in and saying that. Someone saying they still rate Matip and they started it with an M. I mean, I rate Matip, mate.
No one doesn't rate Matip.
I think he's really, really good. He played well when against
fit.
Everton. Yeah, he's really good in the air. His stats are really good. you know, when you do all that, compare one defender to the other and all that, obviously Virgil's stats are right up there, but Matip's are pretty good. He's really good in the air. He's a cool character. I think he's got a lot better. There was a stage with him where I thought he was a bit too, for want of a better phrase, just a bit of a fart. I thought you were going to go really serious then. I thought you were going to go really serious. Did not expect that terminology.
But
he's added, I feel like he's got a bit stronger and a bit more, you know, settled into the Premier League a little bit more. And I'm absolutely fine with him. You know, if he wasn't made of poppadoms, we'd have a really good player on our hands. But he's
got the best angry walk you'll ever see.
Oh, that was amazing, wasn't it? Like John Cleese or something. Just fucking, that was absolutely wild. Oh yeah, I'm just waffling here. I remembered that there is something else I wanted to tell you about. So, I don't know if you're like me, you might be, and if you are, soz. But I'm sort of like, you know, really down now about the idea of not getting into games and not having normal life. It's fucking shit. And so, yeah, I was having a bit of a look last night, you know, has anything been said about us getting back in grounds or what? And it turns out that there was a petition, which I did know about, which got 198,299 signatures. And the petition was allow football fans to attend matches at all levels. Obviously, when it reaches a certain stage, the government have to respond. And they did respond this week. It says, we will take the earliest opportunity to look again at getting spectators safely back into stadia, but this clearly must be done against the prevailing health conditions. Football clubs form the bedrock of our communities and play a vital role in the economy. Their importance has been clearly demonstrated throughout the pandemic, with clubs at all levels providing incredible support to their area. Spot on that, by the way. That is why the government is committed to supporting sports clubs up and down the country, with many football clubs benefiting from the government's unprecedented financial support to businesses. The government is fully aware of the importance of getting spectators back into the stadia for many sports and the financial consequences of the decision not to allow this from the 1st of October. I mean, this Sheffield United game was going to be the game where we were going to be back in the ground, and obviously we're not. The evidence received from the chief medical officer was very clear that at a time of rapidly rising infections and when the government was considering restrictions elsewhere, it was not the right time to undertake allowing spectators to return. Blah, 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 blah. It says they're looking into it, they're creating a working group, they're continuing to speak to health experts, and so on and so on. We're committed to getting spectators back into the stadia as soon as it's safe to do so. With that and with the communication generally, I don't want to get too political, but I just think like it's just left hanging though. You know, they keep looking to Germany and what Germany are doing. And Germany are really like, they've gone, when the infection rate is this, spectators can go back in the ground. And I think by doing that, you're able to then sit at home and go, okay, well, that's the infection rate now. That's when we're allowed back in. I've got something to look forward to. Whereas with these, they just say nothing. You know what I mean? Like, what rate, what level of infection is okay to go and sit outside and watch a football match? And why can you go to the cinema, for fuck's sake, and watch a football match? Why even can you watch a football match in a football ground if it's on a telly?
I know, yeah. Well,
Norwich did a screening, didn't he? It was like...
The biggest issue here, like they've obviously got a loophole, the biggest issue here, and it's because I covered it on one of the shows that we do on 3 Strikes, is the concourses is the big issue. Yeah. So actually, like, where it makes sense to sit outside distance, that isn't actually the issue. You're looking at, like, Everton, Liverpool's one as well. The concourses aren't advanced as, like, Brighton's. That's why they chose Brighton to do that friendly with Chelsea, and it worked well. The Etihad is one. Spurs' new grounds is one. They've got sufficient space and concourse to hold fans, which is... that's where the gatherings will be. Mm-hmm. So then it's a case of, okay, well, where do we put the toilets? How do we stagger the entrances and exits? And it's all to do with the surrounding area as well. And then obviously they've got to look at your local restrictions and say, is it responsible for us to be telling, I don't know, 12,000 fans to be using public transport in a tier 3 area? There are a lot of complications, but it is frustrating when you do see things and go, well, hold on a second. But I think, like, I'm not like saying they're doing the right thing, because I think the government have been in shambles. But I'm saying, as football fans, just remember there's a lot of things to put into place. And I actually trust the Premier League more than I do the government in a way, because they've been organising stuff for so long. They feel like they've put the plans in place. They've spent so much money putting these things into place. and putting practices in and stuff like that. Let them give it a go. And I understand it might be unfair for some teams to have them in and some not. But I would rather say, like, I'm not that type of fan. Other people might be different. If I saw that Tottenham were letting in, but like Liverpool couldn't because they come out and communicated clearly and said the reason Liverpool and Everton can't is because of the concourse space. We haven't figured that out yet, and we can't risk putting people on public transport. I'd be like, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. But if they said like Tottenham can go in because their rates are okay in London, there's lots of modes of transport and they've got a big concourse, I wouldn't be watching the Tottenham game, you know, effing and blinded. I'd be like, I am made up to see fans in the ground. Like, I watched a bit of the Europa League, I watched Rangers against Standard Liège.
Some goal,
unbelievable goal, by the way. Unbelievable. But they had fans in and you could hear it, and it wasn't fake crowd noise, it was reactive, and I thought that makes it better to watch footy.
Yeah, Sid Lowe wrote a great piece about it, about I think it was Deportivo. I've got fans back in, and he went and he just talked about, and he wrote really well about how it felt again to have even any fans in there. Yeah. And they won in the last minute. There was a last minute goal, and I think one of the players said, I don't think that would have happened if we didn't have the crowd in. Because you know, the spurred on by it, they can feel it. And as you say there, for me, I haven't got a problem with the fact that, you know, the city's shut down, the grounds are shut down. I understand, I'm not daft. I just think there should be communication around it. Even, you know, around the logistics, just tell us, just talk about it, because, you know, as it stands, when you're saying things like about transport, and I totally get it, but for instance, they created that radius around the ground where you can't park. If you cancelled that and said, okay, we're now encouraging you to drive, and you know, you can park on the streets like you used to be able to, well, there's one thing straight away. And also as well, they sent that survey out to Liverpool fans, and it was like, you know, what time would you come, what time would you leave, would you hang around, would you have a pint? They were asking loads of stuff about your behaviour, so they've got that data as well. So I think, although they haven't communicated it, through stuff that before he left, what's he called, Peter Moore, was saying, I think they've got a plan that they're happy with.
Everyone has, the Premier League has a plan.
Yeah, and I think they think it's safe. And for whatever reason, the government and their advisors are just saying, blanket, no. And it's that sort of not knowing what goes on in that debate. You
just want communication and scientific evidence, whatever. You just want someone to tell you why. And if they say no and say why, then that's fine. I mean, we've had it in this tier 3 bloody restrictions ourselves with no clear communication as to why gyms are closed and gyms other places. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think football's well down on the list, to be honest, at the minute.
Oh, apparently the questions around Matip were because someone says here that Paul Senior said Lovren was better than Matip. I mean, Paul Senior's Paul Senior. That's his opinion. I've always thought Matip was all right, to be honest, and I was not Lovren's biggest fan. I like this reference, by the way. Someone says you can use old focus points to pay to watch Everton. They were like, when I smoke, well, I used to smoke, you used to get these little points in your ciggies. And you saved the points, and then you could get like a free gift, and someone saying you can go and watch Everton with them. We're waffling now, so we're going to wrap it up. That has been Talking Reds Live. Thanks very much for all your comments. Thanks very much for tuning in. It was a bit of a mad one, that, wasn't it? I really hope you didn't hear that conversation at the start. Up the Reds, get on the podcast, get on the videos, get on the website, get on the shop. There's all the plugs, theanfieldwrap.com. Up the fucking Reds.